All right, Dick, tell me a little bit about the beginning of your career, because you were kind of a reluctant broadcaster. How many people would know the Dickie V that we all love, if not for your wife?
Well, first of all, I really wanted to get back in coaching. I got fired by the Detroit Pistons November 8th, 1979. I was a boy, a ball, a dream. My goal was ultimately to be a success coaching. And I was climbing the ladder. In 1970, I'm teaching the 6th grade, coaching in high school. Then all of a sudden, I go to Rutgers as an assistant coach. We recruit a dynamic class, Phil Sellers, Mike Dabney. They ultimately went to the Final Four in 1976. But in the meantime, because of that, I got offered the job at the University of Detroit. Went there, we became successful, sold out, we got in the NCAA tournament, and it led to one day that the Piston owner came over and offered me the job with the Pistons. I go to the Pistons. So my career went from the 6th grade in 70 to coaching in the NBA in a matter of about 7.5 years. So I was on an incredible run. And in between that, they named me athletic director and coach at UAD. But now I get fired. I'm down as can be. I'm really just absolutely beside myself. Can't believe it. Everybody disappears except your family. Pat, everybody goes. Everybody. You find out in adversity who your real friends are. Bottom line is, one day I get a phone call. My name is Scotty Connell. I'm now in charge of a new network. I heard you speak one time to your team. You said I was the executive producer for NBC Sports. We did your game against Michigan. Your last game you coached in college, the NCAA Sweet 16, John Wooden, Kurt Gowdy. I remember the day vividly because not many of our games are televised. And I was like in awe that John Wooden and Kurt Gowdy were going to do our games, two Hall of Famers in every way of life. And I remember giving a talk to my team at practice, and they were there. And he said when he left, said Coach Wooden and Kurt Gowdy said to him, I think that guy has a chance in television. Wow. So he said, I wrote your name down. When I just saw you got fired, well, I've been named the head of a new network, ESPN. I'll be honest with you. I said to him, Scotty, ESPN sounds like a disease. What is ESPN? Never heard of it. I said, I don't want to do TV. I know nothing about TV. I want to get back where I belong with my passion, my spirit, my enthusiasm, energy. I want to get back to college coaching. Lucky for me that he called back 2 weeks later. He said, you have nothing to lose, Dick. Do this game. And my wife said, go out and do the game. All you're doing is sit home. I was watching Luke and Laura soap operas. It was unbelievable. That's how depressed I was. I went out and did that game, and if you would have told me 34 years later, I'm still doing games. I can't believe it. Don't tell my bosses I've been stealing money, man, doing something I love.
Let me ask you this. How long was it? When did you know, I'm not going back to coaching because this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Pat, that's a great question. If I had stayed in coaching, I firmly believe I'd have been dead by 50. Wow. I couldn't handle losing. Losing tore my insides to shreds, affected my family. What this has given me is great balance in my life. It has put my life in perspective. We often talk about, obviously, the man upstairs is number one with me, then my family, and then my job. And I really firmly believe that. But this gave me balance in my life. When I was coaching, man, I would sit down and if I thought somebody else was getting the edge in recruiting, I'd be a nervous wreck and go on a vacation, want to leave the vacation. Now I go away, I do what I want, my family, I spend so much time with them. So I think when it really hit me was 1983. Scotty kept telling me after I started, he told me three things. He said, number one, he said, you got three things going for you. You're knowledgeable, you're candid, you're enthusiastic, but the third thing is you have no clue how to get in, out, and I'm going to assign you the best. And they hired Jim Simpson from NBC, and they put Jim Simpson, a Hall of Famer, with me. And he would sit down and teach me the ins and outs. Bob Lee taught me the ins and outs in the studio, Jim Simpson with the remotes. And I decided it was 19. Scotty used to always say to me, don't run the coaching. He said, you have something we can't teach. And I didn't know what he was talking about. He said, it's called connect. When you say something, they may not agree with you, But people are going to the waterfall sitting and say, did you hear Dick Vitale yesterday? He said this team is here. He said, you connect. You got a special talent. I didn't know what he meant until 1983. I went for ESPN to my first Final Four. And that was the year Jimmy V cut the nets down and shocked America, beating Phi Slamma Jamma, Olajuwon, Drexler, and that great Houston team. And while I was there, people coming up for autographs and all. I couldn't believe it. Scotty told me, he said, that's what I mean, you connect. And right then and there, I think I realized this is where I want to stay. If you would have told me that would have led to being on a Bill Cosby show, doing a top 10 list with David Letterman, been in all kinds of movies, Naked Gun, He's Got Game, Blue Chips. I mean, it's really been a life that's exceeded any dream that I've ever had.
Dick, you mentioned Jim Valvano. 20 years ago, I'm 15. I don't know a lot about Dick Vitale. I don't really know anything about Jim Valvano, but I see him receive the Arthur Ashe Award. And I cry. 15 years old, I cry. And I walked away wanting to live my life with the kind of passion that Jim Valvano does. Since then, I've probably watched that speech every year. And every year I cry, and every year I walk away wanting to live my life with the kind of passion that Jim Valvano did. Every year I meet so many people that share that exact same experience. Did you know in the moment how special that speech was and how many people it would touch?
Well, I really didn't know because I have heard that speech many times before to Jim. Jim was with the Washington Speakers Bureau, and so am I, speaking all over America. I've heard him deliver very, very positive, motivational speeches. But that night, he had me in awe. And believe me, there was no way in my mind that I ever thought, when I introduced him, I thought he was just going to simply come up, accept the award, say thank you, and sit down. That's why if you look at that speech, I'm standing 3 feet away from him. Like, I would have went to sit down if I knew he was speaking. But I thought he was just going to take the award. I introduced him and gave him the award, the Arthur Ashe Award. I was introduced by Dustin Hoffman, who introduced me and talked about Arthur Ashe. I was so touched because during the course of that day, a lot of people aren't aware of this, Jimmy was so sick that he was in a wheelchair, throwing up. He was, oh my God. I remember Mike Krzyzewski said, I don't know how we're going to get him up there to speak. I mean, Mike has done wonders with the V Foundation, with helping Jimmy. So has John Saunders. They've been so involved. But that night, I will never forget it. And then when I knew the speech was totally unbelievable, I went home that next day. I went to my answering machine, probably around 12 noon, 1 o'clock, flew in early that morning from New York City, and the answering machine was overwhelmed with messages from coaches all over the country. I called up Jimmy's house. I wanted to convey to him, Jimmy, what an impression. What you've done last night was unbelievable. Called up, and his wife, Pam, she said, Dick, he's not coming to the phone with anyone. He's in the bedroom just crying and carrying on. And I said, you got to get him on the phone. She says, he's out of it. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. I said, get him on the phone. That day, she said he spoke to one person. President Clinton called, and he spoke on the phone to him. She got him on the phone. That was our last conversation Jimmy and I ever had. And needless to say, it was very emotional. I was trying to give him a little pep talk about, Jimmy, you just said about, don't give up. Don't ever, ever give up. You can't give up. You got to fight. Here's this guy that gave this incredible speech less than 12 hours earlier. Now I barely can hear him. He's going, Dick, it's over, Dick. Jimmy, don't quit. And then he says, Dick, I'm not going to see my little girl graduate grammar school. I'm not going to be able to walk my daughter down the aisle. And I'm crying, and he's crying on the phone, and he said, I don't want no speeches, man. He said, I just want the best for my family. And all I can simply say, I tell everybody, Jimmy's legacy to me will not be cutting the nets down in '83, winning that national title. It's going to be the 100+ million that has already been raised in his name that affects generation after generation. To me, Bat, you make an impact on society when you affect other people. And that is what the V Foundation does, of which I'm so proud to be a member of the board of directors. And we work religiously here, begging and pleading people to buy merchandise, buy balls, books, because every dollar that I would make, not 80%, 90%, every profit that I would make goes toward the million. And we're very proud that the last 7 years we have raised over $10 million with my gala.
Now, speaking of accepting awards, you became a Hall of Famer not all that long ago. And when it comes to ball players or coaches, there are statistics that you can point to. When it comes to a broadcaster, you don't
Subjective.
You don't become a Hall of Famer because you're a buttoned-up broadcaster. You're a Hall of Famer because of your passion for the game. What does that mean to know that you're not a Hall of Famer because you were specifically good at something, but because you were so passionate that you moved other people?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I recently got into, as you said, the National Sportscasters Hall of Fame. I wear proudly this ring, and this ring is the National Basketball Hall of Fame, which not many can wear that ring. And I'm very proud of it, very honored that someone thought that I contributed to the game and really made an impact in the game. But that was special to me because you're voted by your peers, as I was told by the head of the National Sportscasters and Sports Writers Association. So it was a special honor and a special award. I think the greatest compliment I have ever received in my life was that night from the chairman of the board of ESPN, George Bodenheimer. He introduced me, and I told my wife, I whispered to her when he introduced me and shared these words. He said to the crowd, he said, a lot of you aren't aware. He said, 1981, I was Dick Vitale's driver. I would drive Dickie V around. And let me tell you, he said, what people don't realize, Dick was giving me advice. He was Dr. Dick before Dr. Phil. He was giving me advice because I was upset with where I'm going. There I am working a mailroom. I'm driving Dickie V. I went to a great college. I want to climb the ladder of marketing. And I would always say, Dick would always say, George, be relaxed, patience. You're going to be somebody. So let me tell you about Dick Vitale. I can tell you all about all of his honors, all his awards. Dick Vitale treated me like royalty when I was a nobody. And he is treating me like royalty today, where I've been fortunate to become somebody in the television world. Well, let me tell you, that touched me so much because I firmly believe I came from a home, my mother and father were uneducated, 5th grade education, but a doctorate of love. And Pat, I would have matched my mom and dad with any Harvard graduate, Princeton graduate, about being a good person. They were about respect, punctuality, loyalty, love, family, all the unbelievable intangibles that are vital to make it in the game of life. I just gave a speech yesterday to a bunch of kids. And we talked about what's going on in baseball with the cheating and all the lying and all the con artists. We're reading about A-Rod. We're reading about Braun. Well, I told them, these kids, you can't buy a reputation. These players can write checks out for flashy cars, gorgeous homes, but they can't write a check out for a reputation. You earn that by the way you live your life. And unfortunately, many of them don't make good decisions. We've been blessed here so far with the Rays. I mean, I love, like, when you think of David Price and Evan Longoria, and you think about the Zobris, those people, they're good people. They're more than just players. They understand that you play the game of life. That's the biggest game we all play. And I want to be remembered, when they lower that box, I want to be remembered as somebody who said, wow, he had passion, he had pride, but most of all, he loved people.
All right, before we let you go, tell people if they want to give back to the V Foundation. Of course, you're doing so much work with those guys. Where should they go if they want to make a contribution to the V Foundation?
Well, you know, Pat, we're always looking for donations, sponsorships for my Dick Vitale Gala. This year, we're going to be honoring the likes of Tom Crean of Indiana, who's a member of our President's Club of the V Foundation, Mike Bray of Notre Dame, and Nick Saban of Alabama. May 16th, it'll be an incredible event again, sold out, 800 people, $1,000 a person. If you want tickets, call 941-350-0580. If you're a corporate group out there and you want to be a sponsor, call that same number, 941-350-0580. 0580. Want to make a donation? You can go right to my website, dickvitaleonline.com. Buy any of my merchandise. I have a latest book out called Getting a W in the Game of Life. With that book, all my proceeds go toward that million plus. Our goal on 2014, as we've done the last 7 years, is to announce that we have over $1 million again for kids battling cancer. Wall Children's Hospital, Moffitt Hospital. We also send dollars to Shands Hospital down there in Gainesville. Bottom line, all these people do a great job at All Children's. You never know when cancer strikes. And when it does, it's ugly. Cancer flat out sucks. What I've seen it do to families tears my heart out. Tears my heart out. And it comes after all. Whether you're rich, poor, black, white, Christian, Jewish, it doesn't matter. It'll bring you to your knees. We must unite and get dollars to battle that disease. So please call 941-350-0580.